Ayo, what is up everyone? It is the Alpha J of the Alpha J Show, and let's talk about Supernoobs. Just like with Pickle and Peanut, I only hear bad things from this, and sure enough, I watch it and the hype doesn't match the hate. So this is the second cartoon that really doesn't deserve to be eviscerated. If I can explain this cartoon in one word, using all of my brain powers, and all of my animation reviewing experience, I would say that this cartoon is a derp. Yes, D-E-R-P. Sometimes it makes sense, and sometimes it's just animation for the sake of animation. And for you Johnny Test fans, Supernoobs is just Johnny X and Mr. Black and White the show. You know, all those episodes where Johnny X or Johnny Test as a superhero basically derps around and then save the day. This is pretty much the premise of Supernoobs, but with a heavier emphasis on Mr. Black and White. The plots are on the same level as your typical Nickelodeon fast food show. I think the best way to explain it is to check out Fourth Down and Noob to Go. Wait a minute, they better not use Noob in every title, and they use Noob in every single episode title. You know what? I probably should stay positive. Alright, let's do this.
Tackle the dummy, you noobs! We don't want to train anymore.
You know, I kinda like these guys already. So these are the super dudes, also known as super noobs. They have these ball-shaped gadgets that enable them to have superpowers, which they cannot control. Also, they were given superpowers by accident, which honestly at this point is becoming one of the most cliche ways to start a superhero show. I wouldn't mind this so much if it wasn't for the other paint-by-number things in this show. So-and-so is the cool guy. So-and-so is the voice of reason. So-and-so is the chubby dork. And so-and-so is the girl who is better than all the boys around her, but stays with them for some odd reason. So all four of them are training. Kevin can use his powers to be full or part animal. Shob can wield many forces and bend them to her willing. Roach, wait, his name is Roach? Well, Roach has flight and super strength. So while doing all of this, they trash their alien supervisor's house. So when the supervisor's house is ruined, they say sorry.
What is that? What is sorry?
It's what we say on Earth when we feel bad about something that we can't fix, and the person that we say it to says okay and likes you again.
The joke is that they end up using sorry as a way to be jerks. Now, I would be fine with this if it wasn't so paint by numbers and cliched. Also, part of the joke is that they leave out that you have to mean what you say for it to be genuine. But what's so funny is that in this show, even in the more emotional moments, I bet they still don't mean it. So of course, Kevin puts two and two together and he decides to use his powers in public. Now, there's many applications with this type of story. Supernoobs, however, decides to derp around the topic.
We cannot use our powers to make the football team.
Yes, we can.
I always wanted to play football.
It's exciting!
You know, Shope was the smart one in the debut episode. This reminds me of your typical Teen Titans Go episode so far. Since one person has sense, that person is the odd one out. So they decide to use their powers. The football coach calls the four kids noobs because noobs. It's cool. So you design a cliche coach, right? Since he's big and muscular, he is not smart. But since he's into sports, he's ultra aggressive. And since he's a coach, he has no inside voice whatsoever. And since he's in high school, give him the knowledge of knowing who's cool and uncool. Do you notice a pattern here? So of course they have to face the big and much more qualified team. Now since they use their powers, they win. No one questions anything. That's how this works. Instead of doing this in a way that would just make sense, why not have them using their powers and everyone watching them off screen just, like I said before, derp around? No, seriously, how do jocks running in the direction of the heroes allow them to get away with this? Also, let's just have the coach take them into the team after one touchdown. Now granted, this touchdown was flawless, but you know, still.
Weird things have been happening in school lately. There was a crazy beast in the hallway last week that was stopped by 4 small heroes. And on top of that, nobody's drinking their milk in the cafeteria.
Maybe it's the water. Maybe it's the steroids. Or maybe you're just stupid. The principal says that she has her eyes set on them, which basically means that she doesn't have her eyes set on them. Because if she did, she would have caught this the first time. But I do have some positives. So far, I do like the cartoony nature of this show as well. The show isn't like a Pickle and Peanut, where it knows that its style will be hated and ridiculed, so it takes an ironic route. And the show isn't like a Teen Titans Go, where it wants to believe that it's a show that isn't really being hated and ridiculed as much as people may think, so it takes a more meta route. The show is more like a Johnny Test, where it gets hated and ridiculed, but it simply chooses to continue, not really responding, but not really improving from what I've seen so far. Out of all of these, I would make the argument that the Johnny Test route can be the most infuriating, but since the general majority may not even care about this show, these criticisms and lack of improvement pretty much goes under the radar. It's like a store you don't go into, or a menu option on your local fast food joint that you never pick. If it improves or not, it doesn't really affect you. I will also say that for the most part, except for a few select episodes, the crew isn't really just all the same person split into 4. The crew isn't really one person split up into 4. Something that Shope would do isn't always something that Roach would do. And I think 4 characters, it's something commonly said, but not always done. However, with their good comes a bit of bad. Sure, they don't act the same way, but their name tags are there for a reason. So Voice of Reason is the voice of reason, for the most part. He tries to explain that you shouldn't use your powers for gains that have nothing to do with the virus. By the way, there's a virus in here. Or fighting crime in a sense. And it does seem like it does get through to them because, yeah, they wouldn't want to get caught. However, you know what does convince them to continue? A cheer. From cheerleaders. However, unlike Johnny Test, I guess you can say that it doesn't take a sister being kidnapped or a father saying that it's almost dinner time for Johnny to crack. They continue to play football and decide to not use their powers instead of flat out quitting or faking an injury.
Oh no! Ow!
Why didn't he catch that? He catches everything!
Football! Wolfball! I knew there were loser noobs!
Get out there and stop them!
Am I to believe that they trained each and every time?
Milk? We get it. It's not good sportsmanship to cheat. And using spider hands or gorilla arms is cheating.
The man was just trying to save you from being caught and dissected because you wanted to do something stupid. But what he doesn't know is that the entire town is stupid for thinking that 3 kids could magically beat the entire football team effortlessly. So they guilt trip on something they should have known was unethical to begin with, at least in my opinion. So of course the opposing side is winning by a large amount, and the voice of reason, because it's a voice of reason, still stays the voice of reason and says that at least they should lose with class. So of course, since this is a Johnny Test-like show, the opposite happens, and as soon as he says that, the other team does insult them and shows absolutely no class. But you'll never guess what the voice of reason does.
But get out there and crush them! Dude, what are you saying?
I'm saying go Super Squirrels on 3!
So let me paint this scenario in your mind. A cop gets an advantage, whether it be a gun, a riot shield, a taser, a knife, whatever works. And that cop basically engages in unethical practices and techniques in order to detain a potential criminal. And that cop admits to being unethical and they want to change and they want to improve for the better, but then this potential criminal hurts their feelings. So they end up using those same practices that made them unethical. Like, do you understand what you're doing here? Do you realize, wait a minute, you're butthurt, aren't you? They're better than you, and if they win all the time without powers, then yes, they are better than you. It's a level playing field, and the fact that you're using your powers against people who don't have powers proves that point, but there's no reason to be butthurt about it. So cheating is wrong unless you get your feelings hurt, then cheat all you want, you know? They don't feel like their school that much. I love joke morals as much as the next guy, but where in this story does it seem exaggerated? And no, the superhero part isn't exaggerated, you have to take everything relatively. So no, I don't think this cartoon episode is being exaggerated compared to its other episodes. So yes, they were playing this to be a normal story of how they would realistically act. So if they get triggered, they will use their powers to win, which they do, and they celebrate before.
Stop! I want to talk to our star players and our milk boy. Oh, the milk worked! It makes you strong! So pick up Milk Boy too!
Okay, so you know that was too close and we have to quit tomorrow.
When was it too close? Again, if you were practicing and each and every time you use your powers, no one took 5 seconds to analyze what you saw, then yeah, they have helium for brains. And the characters' motivations were selfish from the beginning. And one of them was at least aware and willing to talk about it. But no, if the other team teases you, all of that class goes out the window, and even if it was rightfully earned, they should swoop in with their powers and pretty much take that. Also, great job for filling out the cliche of being carried, squeezing just as much of other people's work and iterations into your show. Supernoobs is your typical comedy show, which unfortunately isn't really needed in the Cartoon Network lineup. When you have amazing shows breaking out of their typical good enough boundary and actually trying to have their own identity, we don't need this. Maybe if this was 2012 or 2008, around the time when good enough shows thrived, maybe earlier, then Supernoobs would have led this lineup. But Oh wait, it did lead the lineup because this is just Johnny X with Mr. Black and Mr. White. Overall, the show is just derp. Derp out of 10. It has some good things, but it's a fast food show. Nothing to get mad over, but nothing to praise. So this was the last request I'm doing, and if you want to leave a request for December, because I'm not taking any requests in November, the link is in the description below. Leave a comment there. I randomize it, so it's not too late to put it there. And as always, I hope your time was well spent. In Alpha, out. Could magically beat the entire football team effortlessly. Could magically beat the entire football team effortlessly. Could beat the entire football team Could beat the entire football team effortlessly. Could magically beat the entire football team effortlessly. God, I can't freaking say this word. Could magically beat the entire football team effortlessly. Oh my God. Effortlessly. Could magically beat the entire football team effortlessly. Oh my God.